Well, hey there. Today we're in the studio with Pastor Brent, outreach pastor, and we're talking today about causes of poverty in America. Now, there are 5 major causes of poverty. Why don't you walk us through those?
Well, there's a lot more than that, but we're
Yeah.
we're picking those top 5 really.
Yeah.
Really, the first one is a poor economy, and so if you think about some recessions we've had in the past, who does it really affect? Well, it really affects the poorest people, and even middle class. It's surprising how many middle class families can end up in poverty,
Yeah.
and one of the reasons is a poor economy.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of companies, big companies, that will actually ship their production overseas. The reason they do that is to save money on their taxes, but what it does is it ends up causing a lot of unemployment.
Yeah.
And so they're able to pay workers in a foreign country a lot less money
Yeah.
than they are in America.
Yeah.
And so the people in America get the short end of the stick because now they're out of a job.
Yeah.
And so they do that during a poor economy, which affects the business, but then it affects the employee.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is that jobs become scarce. There's a lot more competition for jobs.
Yeah.
And so people that don't meet those demands or have those skills end up becoming a lot more poor.
Now, I know this is a really political point here,
Definitely.
so we're not going to get into all of that, but it's interesting. If you want proof of this, go to a developing country, and you're going to see proof of just the importance of the economy. It's kind of like the ships go up and down on the tide. All the ships do. And so America is very blessed to have a strong economy, certainly relative to the whole world. But even here in America, it goes up and down.
It does.
But in those
Yes.
developing countries, it's important to recognize it's not all just my ability to work,
Right.
because you see people working really hard in other countries and they're living in abject poverty.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
that's
Well,
for sure.
what's the second in America? What's the second cause of poverty?
Well, there is a very much a lack of affordable housing. And so it's really hard to live in a downtown area because sometimes that's the most expensive place to live.
Yeah.
But yet that's where the jobs are.
Yeah.
And so that's where you want to live in order to make money, but then when you're trying to make money, you're paying higher housing.
Yeah.
And so, for example, you have to make over $15 an hour just to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment on average in America. And so that's, twice the basically income or the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot when it comes between what you're getting paid versus what you have to pay
Yeah.
for your housing. It doesn't match up many times, and that ends up having a lot of people in poverty.
And certainly some areas of the country are better than others
Yeah.
in this respect. But a lot of people, they only know, you grow up in Seattle, you grow up in San Francisco, that's all you know. What are you going to relocate to a place where it's just a little more affordable? It's hard to have that kind of vision or even that kind of an opportunity.
Right,
To do
and it ends up, you have to move away from family and friends too if you
Yeah.
want to go to a more affordable place to live.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So how about number 3? What's the third, in your mind, what's the third cause of poverty in America?
This is one I think we associate most with homeless people is drug issues and drug use. And there's a lot of people that are living on the streets simply because of a drug addiction.
Yeah.
And so drugs are expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are, smoking a gram of cocaine
Yeah.
once a week, it's actually about $100 for a gram. So if you're doing that once a week, or if you're doing that 7 days a week, once a day for
Yeah.
a week, that's $700
Yeah.
coming out of your paycheck. And so, and heroin is much more expensive than that.
Yeah.
And so if you have a drug habit, if you're addicted to drugs, you are spending a lot of money.
Well, not to mention the collateral damage
Definitely.
for the drug habit. It's hard to keep a job if you're addicted to drugs.
And it's hard to keep a job even if you are an alcoholic,
Right.
which is legal.
Right.
And so if you are spending a lot of money, on alcohol,
Yeah.
it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
It'll end up taking a big chunk out of your paycheck. And then there's issues like being late to work.
Yeah.
There's issues even about getting a ticket for driving under the influence.
Right.
There's issues about losing your license
And then can't get to work.
can't get to work or having to pay higher insurance.
Yeah.
And then there's medical issues that go along with that too.
Yeah. So to me, that's a clear case of sin begetting sin.
Yeah.
The sins are not usually isolated, but if you've got issues like that. Now, the other ones you mentioned are more societal, but this one to me is more personal.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
How about your fourth one? What's your fourth cause of poverty?
It's lack of education. And so if you basically just have a a high school diploma, or maybe even an associate's, you know, you can be behind the eight ball a lot, trying to be able to get a job and get ahead of other people that have a higher education.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, obviously, this is a political issue too, but college costs money.
Yep.
Universities cost money. Getting that diploma and that education costs money. Yeah. And a lot of people go into debt just trying to get their education.
Yeah.
Let alone trying to find a good job without an education.
Well, I know that's a catch-22. I've got a couple of kids that are about ready to go to college,
Yeah.
and it's hard because you say, well, college education is good because you get better jobs, but you really have to balance it with, man, how much debt do I really want to go into for this?
Right.
Teachers are a clear example to me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's one thing if you're going in the medical field and you're going to have the ability to pay it back, but a teacher, boy, if you're spending $50,000 a year, that's going to take you an entire career, in some cases, on your teacher's salary to be able to pay that back over time.
Especially if you want to be one of those teachers that want to work in the inner city,
yeah.
where teachers definitely do not get paid that much.
Right. So it's taken more, I think, more and more creativity in learning how to get a good, solid higher education without going into crazy debt.
Exactly, and it's a hard balance.
Okay, what's your fifth cause? We'll just do one more. What's your fifth cause of poverty?
This is something that could hit anybody in any class. It's medical expenses. And so anybody at any time can have cancer can show up, or some kind of radical surgery that you need, and that costs a lot of money, obviously. You know, most people have medical insurance, but there's a lot of people that don't have that medical insurance, and they're trying to save money in case something happens, but usually it's going to be a lot more expensive than the money that you even are trying to save.
Yeah, right.
And so medical stays, a Tylenol, cost so much money in the hospital compared to what you would buy at a grocery store. Simple things.
Yeah.
And long stays in the hospital and things like that. And even if you do have medical insurance, there's co-pays that you have to pay up front that most people in middle class or lower class wouldn't be able to even afford the co-pay.
Yeah.
And so things like medical expenses can really put you into debt and cause you to go into poverty very quickly.
Yeah. What strikes me about these 5 things, and you can add some of your own things as you talk about this in your world, is just how some of these we have control over, some of these we don't have control over, but all of these are causes of poverty, and many more as well. Divorce, I think, is another cause of poverty in America. I think laziness could certainly make the list. So we encourage you to use the questions below to talk about this with your family, with your small group, or with a mentor, and maybe even add some of your own causes of poverty. And then we hope that you really will challenge yourself to say, how can I be part of the solution in my culture, in America? How can I become part of the solution in helping to end poverty in our great country? Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope that video was helpful for you. Don't forget, every Monday on our channel, we have new topics just like this one. We talk about all kinds of stuff, and it's so that not just we can have a conversation here, but so that you can have a conversation there with your family, with your small group, or your mentor. So make sure to subscribe, and if you've got some topics that you want us to cover in the studio, make sure to put those in the comments below. We'll see you in the next video.